Good afternoon and welcome to the Live at the Lads Club show from Salford Lads Club. I'd like to mention a few people before we get on with the interviews. It's a rather sad one actually. Two friends of mine died over the weekend. Rod O'Connor, well-known character around Eccles, the marijuana minstrel as he used to call himself when he was busking, and the poet Smoky Top, Michelle Keaton. She was a good friend of ours. A few other people I would like to mention. Before the show started, I was talking to a couple from Dublin, Lawrence and Marta. As usual, they'd made the pilgrimage to Manchester, look at the Manchester music scene, and obviously they had to come to the Smiths Club and reenact the Morrissey photo, was by Stephen Wright. I'd just like to thank a few people who've helped us through the week. Lynn Cullen and Griffiths, as always, Catherine McHugh, Paul Spencer from Broughton has always minded me to come on the show. I published a photograph taken last year, a black and white photograph of me on a tram. We'd come back from the John Cooper Clarke concert at the arena, the Corp Arena. People asked who took the photograph, and I'd like to solve the mystery by saying it was Paula Louise Jennings. That's probably her now. And last week we had a few things we covered through Salford Media. I was really impressed with it. We went into, it was called Get Into Eccles, that was the working title. And in Eccles Parish Church there was the Amber String Quartet, and I have to say I was really pleased. They started with Elgar, very classical, then they did popular music, Golden Brown, the Queen, James all sit down, but they blended in perfectly with the string quartet, 3 violins and a cello. And at the half-time break, we'll show you a clip of them actually playing one of the tunes. Queen it was actually, not my choice. There was street stalls on, and BB6 music in Eccles Town Hall. And I went on the Sunday, there was Music Shed, live, young up-and-coming bands. It was great, really good. And I've got to plug my talk next Friday, the 10th of April, Regent Road Stories. You may remember I did it outside early on this year, January, but this year it'll be in one of the concert rooms. It's free to get in. I'd like to stress that, it's free. But you can get book tickets from Eventbrite. There's a link on Salford Lads Club page. So please come down, it should be a good night, hopefully. And later on we'll be talking with Roy, and we've got the Morrissey donations. The t-shirt from You Are the Quarry, that has fetched an astounding 30 quid. A chap called Tristan Armstrong. Now the set list, that fetched 70 quid. A chap called Graham Chard. So I'll be expecting your money soon, boys, and ignore the drilling. I should get on with the show. Thank you. Are we going to continue with that? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Sorry about this. The workman has chosen to drill in the wall at the most inappropriate moment. First guest is Paul Banks. Okay,
good
Paul.
Afternoon.
You okay?
Yeah.
Good.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Above the drilling, yeah. I hope we can. Now you're making a name for yourself on the Manchester music scene, aren't you, with the videos that you make?
Yeah.
Really impressed with them.
Yeah.
What made you start making these videos?
So it came from a dark place. Get the heavy stuff out of the way first. So in 2018, my mum had a knee replacement operation. I was talking to her, having a laugh with her. She was walking down the stairs and then she said, "Oh, I feel faint." And then the next thing, she fell down the stairs, she broke her leg, and then I was panicking, and we rang 999, didn't know what to do, and then my mum stopped breathing. And then I had 999 yelling at me, telling me how to do CPR over the phone, and it's something I'd never done before.
No.
And then my mum died, and it completely broke me. And I tried to go back to work, and I developed PTSD. Right. So I had to leave my job. And then I saw a therapist who specialised in trauma, and she kept telling me about EFT tapping.
What's EFT?
Emotional freedom technique.
Right, yeah.
So I thought, well, I'm not paying for that holistic nonsense. But there was one session where I was completely overwhelmed. So she said, trust me, try it. So what you do is you tap on acupuncture pressure points, mainly around the face, and you talk about whatever the issue is. In my case, I had feelings of guilt connected to the CPR because my mum died and a lot of nonsense was going on. Of course. And we tried this tapping session, and then for about 20 minutes I said everything that was going on in my mind while I was doing CPR, and she'd be saying that this is a normal response in a trauma, and it fixed the guilt. The guilt just went in that session, so I was blown away, and I qualified as an EFT practitioner, and I did it as a volunteer. So I did groups for charities, and then I started a YouTube channel. So at first it was EFT tapping with music that people could follow, and then I started doing videos on grief and interviews, and then it was through I was doing that for about a year, and then I always thought, wouldn't it be good, because I was getting a lot of experience then, and I thought, wouldn't it be good to do something on music? That's what I enjoy, and then that's how it started.
So it's like therapy?
Yeah.
Musical therapy, should we call it?
Yeah.
We're doing really well at it.
Yeah.
So how many videos have you done?
I think 101 that are published, and I've got 28 that I've still not released.
So how long have you been doing it then? A couple of years?
17 months.
You're really knocking them out then, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, someone said to me early on that I'm doing too many, but here I am, still knocking.
If you're happy doing it,
yeah,
why not? Are they all filmed in Gullivers?
Yeah, the majority are, yeah.
No.
Yeah, some are over Zoom, and then occasionally I've done them at my house.
Right, so one was it Rick Turner?
Yeah, that was in his garden.
That was in his garden, wasn't it? He's a rum bugger, isn't he?
Yeah.
Perfume, what was his band called? Paris Angels, that was it,
yeah. The dog pissed in the back. Can I say that? The dog pissed in the background.
Adds to the ambience then, didn't it?
Yeah.
So what big names have you videoed, interviewed?
I've done a live one with Graham Massey.
Oh yeah.
Probably I think the most famous is Man Parish, and I've done
Male Stripper. He was, wasn't he?
No, he sang the song Male Stripper.
Oh well. Yeah.
He did. That was like.
I wasn't implying he was one.
No. No. He was like. Some people say he did the first ever hip hop record, but Boogie Down Bronx. That's how I know it. And then I don't think who else. Ricky was a big one.
Perfumers, that's all. I saw one you did with Nico's daughter, was it Harmony?
Oh, she was brilliant.
Good, that one, I enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Well, quite a musical family though, aren't they? Is it Spencer Birtwistle, her dad?
I've done one with Spencer.
Have you really?
Yeah, it's just not released yet.
Right. I was pleased to see that you'd covered a friend of mine, Reg
he's hilarious, Reg.
He was a character around town, Reg, wasn't he, with well, quite a few. Diane Ashton, was it? Was it Diane?
Yeah.
Corbières, you mentioned that in your interviews and your writings. Was you a regular there?
Yeah, and like I remember little Anthony from Interstellar.
Yeah.
I remember having a chat with him, and we were saying about like Manchester music, documentaries and books that Corbières never gets mentioned, and it was such a special place, that's such a centre of it all. I always had that in mind. If I ever write a book or if I ever do anything Manchester music wise, I'm going to like do stuff on Corbières.
It was, well, say world famous. It was well known for its jukebox, wasn't it? It had an excellent jukebox.
Yeah,
I used to go in there, it was a long time ago, and I used to do Corbières. It's still going, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is the jukebox still in situ?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as good now. Yeah.
So I assume that your videos are getting good reception, feedback off people, yeah?
Yeah, it's unreal. Like I don't realise who's watching them, but then sometimes like someone will stop me in the Trafford Centre, and they've been watching them, and then sometimes I'll message someone like, "Will you do a video?" thinking they're not going to get back to me, and then they do, and they said they've been watching them. Like, wow. So I don't know who's watching them at the moment. I think the big one was I was in a cafe in town, and we'd done a video on Pips, and then the woman I was with said, "That's Ian Brown over there." And I looked over and I thought, oh God, it is, yeah. And then you should go over and ask him to do a video. And then I was like, And I thought, well, I mean, part of me froze if I'm honest, but then part of me thought, well, if I want to be taken serious, I can't just go over and interrupt people. So I left it, and I was a bit gutted, and she said, oh, you should have gone over. And then after half an hour, this voice behind me said, is it Paul? And then I turned around, God, Ian Brown had come over, and he'd been watching some of it.
Is he going to do on camera for you?
He said he might do, but in the future, so that'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
Well, at least
if you're watching, Ian, yeah.
Come on, Brownie.
Yeah.
Tell him.
Yeah.
No, I'm really impressed with what you've done and what you've told me about the videos, and yeah, because you've covered like every aspect. You've got the DJs, haven't you? You've got club promoters, musicians. Yeah. What was your popular type of music then when you were a young man in growing up in Manchester? Was it hip hop or dance, trance?
I mean, I think like it's made me well suited to this because I chopped and changed a lot. So when I left school, I was into hip hop, and then I got into house music, and then I worked in a bank in town, and a lot of my workmates were students, and they got me into indie. So I had periods of going in Hacienda at first with acid house, but then I started going in Lazy Lils more, and then I think around 93 when the Paradise opened, I was more into house music. So I like it all really, but I think Manchester merged, didn't it, like 1899 with Manchester.
Well, the Manchester was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
Yes, yeah, when it opened.
What was his name, the coloured man?
Leroy.
Leroy. Have you interviewed him?
Yeah, I've done two. I did one with Vera Green.
I think it might be easy for me to say you haven't interviewed, hasn't it?
I know.
Is there anybody you wish to interview, who's on your hit list?
Dermo said something interesting, and he said that we're all...
North side?
Yeah, he said that we're all equal. And that's like, drilling, and excuse me. And I kind of think, well, I'm not really after celebrities, but there is like, cause I'm writing another book, and then I really want to do a New York rapper or like someone on the electro scene. I'd love to do that.
Right. But sorry about this. Cameraman.
I'd love to interview that driller. Tell him to stop.
I like the interview. I'd like to say something to him.
Yeah. You won't be able to say it on camera, would you?
You can. So
it's like the bleep button, this, isn't it? Like I can swear now, can't I?
No, please don't. So you've now progressed into doing books?
Yeah.
Are these the books? Tell us about the books. Dance Years.
I never thought that I'd be able to do a book. So I didn't think I'd be clever enough. I didn't think I'd be able to do it. It sounded way too complex, and I always said that if someone comes along that helps me, then I'll do it. And then after a while, someone did put a comment on my Facebook, do you realise you've got enough research for a book? And then Goni from Quango said that I'll help you, happy to help. So I messaged her, and then she said that she wouldn't write it or edit it, but she'd help me draft a proposal. And then as I started writing the chapters based on the videos, and then I got some people who did recordings just for the book, I realised, well, I can do this myself. I don't need anyone's help. And then I was going to start contacting publishers when I finished, and then I got a big long email from my parish, and he said, well, don't contact a publisher because they'll take 90%, they'll make you promote it, if it does well they'll own it, and they'll own the film rights, why would you do that? And I looked into it, and it was just like, it was easy to do on Amazon. I couldn't believe it.
Self-publishing.
Yeah, and then when I uploaded it as Kindle at first, and then I didn't sleep that night because I thought, there's going to be mistakes in it. And then as the first reviews came in, it's like, wow. And I still thought that, I don't really have an ego, and at first I thought, it's not really that good, is it? And then now, it's like a month later, I'm starting to think, well, I've done something really special here.
You should be proud of what you've done, Paul.
Yeah.
So how many books have you done then?
I've done 2, and I've done 12 chapters of the next book.
And what's the next book? What's that going to be?
It's going back to dance music.
Yeah.
And then I felt like I stalled a bit because I thought, well,
Go on.
I can't just do another book on acid house.
Right.
But then I did a video with someone on reggae. And then
Reggae?
I thought, well, I'll try and do a chapter on reggae.
Right.
So I've got a Boney M story now. And I've got, I'm going to do some chapters on jungle. So I'm going to do dance music again. And inevitably I'll end up writing about acid house. But sometimes the books develop as I go through them.
You've covered every genre of music. What about the 60s? Is there anything on that? 60s, 70s music?
I've done 3 videos on it.
I saw one you did with a chap from Cornerstone. Can't think of his name.
George
Dawes, that was it, yeah. He was at the top.
George Dawes, isn't that?
That's his name.
Shooting Stars.
No, it's not really his name, George Dawes. I'm making it up, honestly. Because he was talking about the Oasis, wasn't he? And
yeah. He brought two or three folders with him.
Right.
Yeah, and it was astonishing what he'd kept. He was fascinating. It made me think maybe I should buy like a scanner, but I'm sure that'll all go on the MDM archive. Yeah.
Freudian slip then, was it?
Yeah.
MDMA.
Yeah.
I know George, when he was talking about the 60s, I did knock around town in the 60s, but the Oasis was a bit too moddy for me. But have you ever heard of Auntie's Kitchen?
No.
Places like that. We used to go there. I've got to admit, there was more for the pharmaceuticals and the music. I think that's a piece of Manchester history that's not been recorded as it should be. But one for your future project, possibly.
I'd love to do more in the 60s.
Yeah.
And one thing as well, like the black voices don't seem to get covered. So like I've done a lot. Like and if I can always help me, and I'd love to go and do stuff on the blues. In the 60s in Moss Side. I'd love to cover more.
The Nile, Reno, and all that.
Like pre that. What was
Monton House? Have you heard of Monton House?
No.
That was it was a disreputable place. A young boy like you wouldn't get in.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have enjoyed it. I've got to say that. Is it the drilling cow? Is it taking over the voices?
Oh yeah. It's been absolutely silent for me at the moment when I started.
I don't know what to say. So what future plans then, young man, for you? World domination by the sound of it?
Yeah, so like, this has helped me. It started as like mental health.
Yeah.
And it's helped me and it's given me confidence. And so what I want to do now is like, I know like our age don't necessarily like club it anymore and we don't go out as much. And I thought wouldn't it be good to like give back and put on free events. So I'm starting to do live interviews.
You've seen that, you do talks, don't you?
Yeah, so like the last one was Drew Ellison and he was absolutely hilarious and everyone loved it, and then already he's calling it Thursday Social Club. So I've got a guest booked for the next 3 months.
Really?
Yeah, I've got this month it's a poet called Tammy. The month after that I've got a guy called Kim Marriott, and then Graham Massey.
808 State?
Yeah, and Alan from Crispy Ambulance.
Crispy Ambulance. What was that? I had an album of theirs, 3 a.m. or something. Were they on Benelux label?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it was on Benelux. Factory Benelux, the Belgian one.
I'm going to make them free events in Gullivers.
Right.
And then 30 people maximum.
Right.
And then so it's like a small, intimate thing. I might try and see if I can get big names as well, and then make it as a mystery guest.
Mystery guest?
Yeah, then you won't know.
Ian Brown, give this lad a hand.
Yeah,
him hand. What, Bez, or they just not fit the criteria?
Oh yeah, Bez would be amazing.
Bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bonkers. Right. Well, Paul, I've had a lovely time chatting to you. Yeah. Tell us where we can see your YouTube videos and your other stuff you want to plug. And where's the book available?
Manchester Scene Stories.
Yeah.
That's everything. That's my YouTube, my Instagram, my Facebook. MCR Scene Stories, Paul Banks. The books are available on Amazon in all formats. And You can actually buy them in Piccadilly Records now as well.
Oh, physical format.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck, but I don't think you need it, to be honest. You seem to be hell-bent on world domination on Manchester music, don't you? And good luck for you.
Yeah.
Paul, I've had a lovely time speaking to you. And I'm sorry about the drilling, that's well beyond my control, but thanks for coming on and talking to us.
Thanks, Tony.
It's a pleasure, young man.
Yeah, cheers.
Right, now I believe we've got some video footage. Just sit down a second, kid. We went to Eccles Parish Church, as I said, last Saturday, and we saw a band called Amber, a string quartet, and Carl so kindly made a video of it. And can we have a look at the video, Carl, please? And we're back in the room. I do apologise about the drilling. I'm sorry, that's well beyond our control, and Carl's just going to have a strong word with them. whether it'll work or not, I don't know. Hope so. Because the next guest is really interesting chap, Roy Matthews. What this man hasn't seen, done music-wise, isn't worth talking about.
Don't build it up too big.
Right, we're going to start at the beginning, Roy.
Can I just say,
Paul,
well done to Paul for 101 interviews.
Yeah.
I watched the one he did with Dermo from Northside.
Yeah.
And I just want to wish Dermo well with his recent health problems.
Didn't he? Yeah, he did.
So, I have a funny story about Northside if you want me to start with that.
Yeah, it's topical.
It was about 89, 90, and there was a scheme where if you set up as self-employed or set a business up, you could get £40 a week for a year.
Enterprise allowance scheme it was.
Enterprise allowance scheme. So I decided to go on it, and I had to go to an office building opposite Salford Royal Hospital. So I turned up, and it was in like a classroom, and there was a guy taking the day. And just as we were about to start, in came this bunch of young lads who didn't look like they wanted to be there, and looked extremely tired. And it was Northside. Right. And Tony Wilson had told them to go on the enterprise allowance scheme, so they'd have 40 quid a week. So they sat down, and they spent pretty much the whole morning like that. Because they'd played in London the night before.
Drove all the way up.
And drove all the way home. So he wasn't happy, the guy taking the class, and he kept sit up, take notice. And so at dinner time, I took them all for a pint round the corner, because none of them had got any money. Yeah. And so after that, I always watched when they were on anything or in anything. And I think I remember them making the cover of the NME. And I thought, oh, that's the sort of recognition now if you're on the front cover. And so I've always kept that little association with them. Never seen them since.
Right. Good story.
But there was something about them a couple of years ago on some Facebook group, and I told that story about them attending that day. And Dermo came on and said, oh, I remember it, thanks for the beer.
Wow.
So I just thought I'd wish him well, because I know he's not too good at the moment.
Right, we're going to mention, you've got a strong Eccles connection, haven't you?
So I'll state now, I'm not an interloper. I was born at Salford Royal.
Good lad.
And I lived the first 4 years on West Craven Street, which was a stone's throw from here. And then we also lived at Glendoon Street and Augusta Street.
Yeah, off Liverpool Street.
And then later in life, I lived in Eccles for a while on Trafford Road. So, just so people don't complain.
You're not a blow-in, not a chancer. Trafford Road, that's where...
So that leads
nicely
neatly into Brownsville Band, who a lot of people from Eccles will remember.
I remember him very well.
And we lived in the house, the big semi next to Greenbank Labour Club. And Graham Roberts from Brownsville Band was in the ground floor flat. I was upstairs above him, and Roger Tweedy was in the flat next door, fortunately. Not far enough away, but at least he was next door. So I first met Brownsville in a girlfriend I had in about 1976. Her sister's boyfriend worked for EMI, and he said to us one day, do you want to go and watch Bob Williamson at the Palace? And it won't cost you anything. So we said, yeah. So we went, and the support band was Brownsville. And I'd never seen anything so funny in my life. And a couple of weeks later, I noticed Brownsville were playing at a pub in Stockport, and just on a whim I thought I'll go. So I went on my own. And I don't even remember how I got there, because I wasn't driving. And I walked in the pub, and they were just setting up, and I went over and said hello, and just said I saw you at the Palace, and thought it was great, so I've come tonight, right. So when they finished setting up, they sat down for a beer and said, come and join us. So I sat and we chatted, and then they did what we would call an act, and I thought it was just as funny. So when they'd finished, I went over to give them a lift to carry the stuff into the van. So when it was loaded, they said, how are you getting home? I live in Urmston. I said, I don't know. So they gave me a lift home. And on the way home, they said, how do you fancy coming out and giving us a lift and doing a bit of driving? So I said, oh yeah, I'll do it. So a couple of nights later, they're picking me up in the van and we were off to goodness knows where. And that's when the adventure started, really. I'd never been on the road with a band before, didn't really know what went on. But we were going to, you know, folk club here and a working men's club there, and the Eisteddford, and I think St Guy's Hospital one night for the passing out thing with the Trogs and the Nashville Teens. And so I'm starting seeing all these different bands as well. And they also had a close connection with Bob Williamson.
No.
So bumping into Bob as well, who will probably crop up a bit later.
Why do you think Brownsville never made that transition to the big time? Were they too anarchic? One word, Tweedy.
Well, I mean, yeah, fairly uncontrollable. I don't really know, because wherever they played, everybody thought they were hilarious. They brought the house down. But he was a bit unpredictable, shall we say. And if that gas mask fell off, you know, then, you know, and that was on telly, that would have been big trouble. For anybody that doesn't remember Brownsville Band, Roger was sort of the front man, and he used to wear an outfit that consisted of golf shoes, half-mast Bay City Rollers trousers, a red, white and blue waiter's jacket, a dicky bow, and he had one of the old-fashioned kettles on his head, and he used to put a smoking tablet in the cap so that when he came out, it looked like the kettle was boiling. So, I'll make of that what you will. They were playing at the Free Trade Hall on a Rock Against Racism gig, and it was sold out at the Free Trade Hall. We're in a bit of a dispute because I think it was with Steel Pulse and Mike Hardin, and Roger thinks it was with Ewan McCall and John Cooper Clarke. I'm right, but we're in dispute. So he came up with the idea of me dressing as him in his spare outfit, and I would go out first with the band, say hello to the sold out crowd, and then introduce the first song, and then he would come on tied up and pretend he'd been sort of tied up and bundled away somewhere and I was impersonating him. He would come on, interrupt me, I'd go off and they'd start. So we went on, I said hello to the crowd, I've got the smoking kettle on my head, the Bay City Roller trousers, which Steel Pulse found hilarious because we were sharing a dressing room with them. And I've got a little eyebrow pencil Frank Zappa
that was a trademark, wasn't it?
And so I said hello to the crowd, introduced the first song, looked over for Roger to come on, and he was at the side and went like that. So he just left me in the lurch, and I thought, well, I know the songs well enough that I could probably sing it, but I won't do it like Roger. And Mike Hardin saved me, fortunately, and the show went on. But so that's what it was like with them. He was always coming up with some idea or other that would probably embarrass me or whatever.
Tweed. I do remember seeing him one night. I think it might have been at the Labour Club, at Greenbank. And he came on stage with naked and just a gas mask.
Yeah, the gas mask.
I thought it was different.
And it had a piece of cloth in the glass, so it wasn't, you know, right in your face. And then he did when he'd left Brownsville, he did a show called The World's Worst.
Right.
And he used to come on with, on his lapel, he had a little bell that he used to put in a budgie's cage.
Right.
And he'd come on nutting the bell. And then people knew sort of, oh, well,
is that the ground?
We're in for something here.
Yeah.
It was really funny, actually, but again, it was difficult to know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I remember asking Bernard Manning, I showed Bernard Manning a video of Roger and said, you know, where would you book him? And he said, I don't really know. Possibly the university circuit. But he said he couldn't really do clubs, and I don't think he could do television. And we auditioned, well, Roger auditioned for the very last episode of OTT, which was the Chris Tarrant thing that was like the grown-ups version of Tiswas. And we went down to, I think we went to Birmingham, and we showed the video to John Gorman, who was out at the scaffold. And he was on OTT. So he watched the video, he laughed a lot, he made a couple of notes, he thought it was very good. When it had finished, he said, yeah, I liked it, and you know, I think you could do OTT. I've got one person left to see. So we said, can we stay and watch? So he said, I'll have to ask him, and he wouldn't let us stay and watch. And unfortunately, the last guy he saw was the one who got the show. And it was the Rat Man, they used to call him.
Rats?
And he used to put rats up his trousers and in his jacket and that.
Ferrets and rats, yeah, I remember that.
I can't remember his name, but he was affectionately known as the Rat Man. And he did really well out of that appearance. His club appearances and that went, I remember he did the gallery one night. And so he probably got about 18 months better fee after OTT. And then Roger just stopped doing it, really. Which was
I think it has to be said in Roger's defence, he was a genuine eccentric, wasn't he? He wasn't forced. You never knew what he was going to do next.
Oh, absolutely
it was just,
not, no.
I've been in a pub and think, what is he going to do? Like a ticking bomb. Not harmless. He was
you'd have to,
funny man.
You'd have to be on your guard.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the time. But, I mean, that's what made him funny. You know, if it was just a show that he did and then when he walked off, he wasn't like that.
Yeah,
but he was like
full
that.
time. Was he on the Isle of Wight now or somewhere?
Yeah, he lives on the Isle of Wight now, and I hear from him at least once or twice a week.
Do you really?
Yeah, we exchange emails, and I send him songs when we've recorded songs.
I'd love to meet him again.
Yeah, he's not been down for a while, but next time he's visiting, I'll definitely. And he's probably watching this now, because he's aware of it. So hello, Roger, if you're watching.
Roger, come on the show.
Come on the show next time you're down. So the spin-off from the Brownsvilles was the Naughty Boys, right? Which people from Eccles might remember. It was at the time of, it was punk time really, maybe 78, 79. So the ethos is anybody can play. If you've got a guitar, you can get up and play. It doesn't matter how good you are. All the sort of, they were trying to get rid of all the old virtuoso guitarists. And so we formed the Naughty Boys. It was Graham Roberts and Iggy, and me on drums. And I played Roger's old drum kit, which was as ramshackle as his act, really. But it was just, you can get up and make a noise. And I have to say, I'm not a drummer. I wasn't very good in the Naughty Boys.
You fitted in
but we made a noise because we already had the connection with working with Brownsville. And we played the Band on the Wall, and we played the Gallery, and Salford Uni, when Tariq Ali was on. And I remember the Gallery one because when we got there in the afternoon to set up, Peter, who ran the Gallery, said, can you not make a noise until the Quality Street gang have finished their meeting upstairs?
Yes, certainly.
So obviously we set up as quiet as church mice. And then Dave Gleave joined.
Great photographer.
On guitar, before his photography.
And Gustafsson now, wasn't it?
And Gustafsson. And then it went up a step music-wise then when Dave joined. And Iggy wrote great songs, but it didn't last very long, and it sort of fell apart. And then they got back together again, Dave and Iggy, with other musicians, and they were great then. And they played the International, and it had gone a step up again, and I've never understood why they didn't get somewhere, because he wrote really great songs for the time.
They had a good name though, didn't they, the Naughty Boys?
Yeah, they were popular. There was
a
decent following in Eccles.
Big in Eccles.
Big in Eccles, it should have been the first album. And they played the Green Bank quite a few times because there was the association.
I saw them one night there with a reggae band. They were called Katama.
Oh yeah, it's on that poster.
Yeah. God,
I don't actually remember the night. I remember the very first night we played was in a club over near Eccles Station, but on the other side of the motorway. And there was a club there somewhere.
The Liberal Club.
The Liberal Club.
Yeah.
And that was the first gig we did. And for the entire gig, I had Bob Williamson about 4 foot away from me firing elastic bands at me. I'd borrowed Roger's waiter's jacket, and that ended up covered in beer and all sorts of other things. So he said I couldn't use it again. But that was the first night, and it was packed, just through word of mouth and people knowing Brownsville. Which probably leads us on to Bob Williamson.
It does indeed.
The band played with Bob quite a lot, and were on one of his albums. And so I got pally with him and ended up driving him everywhere because he didn't drive. So I used to drive him if he was on telly or playing at, the Palace or wherever, and sometimes further afield. And I did that for probably about 3 years. And
he was another one, in my opinion, should have, because he was on the television, wasn't he? I don't get a television. I remember him being on Granada. Yeah,
he did Granada a lot. Well, he was a friend of Tony Wilson's, so Tony used him quite a lot. But also during the World Cup, he was on Granada every night singing what programme
topical things
were on that night, because the games used to interrupt the regular running order. So he'd get a taxi down, and I'd meet him there. And in the taxi on the way down, he'd write the song, because they'd send through what programmes were on. He'd just write a funny song. He was on every night for about 30 nights.
Because I remember I had an album of his, Super Turn.
Yeah,
I think
Super Turn.
Doc Roberts, the guy, I think he's on the album cover.
Yeah, he's on it, and Roger's on it, and George, who was the other member of Brownsville's, Alan.
What was his record? Was it Kippers for Tea?
Yeah, Kippers for Tea was a single, and there was another. He did a single of, was it DIVORC, or was that Billy Connolly?
Billy Connolly did that one.
He did 2 singles that sort of did all right. And I think one of them, I remember him saying, because he was on EMI, so he had a good label behind him, and I remember he was penciled in to go on Top of the Pops.
Wow.
And when he told us, we all said, right, well, we're on with you, we'll be your band, just so we can say we've been on Top of the Pops. So he said, okay. And the deal was, it was between him and another song that they both entered the lower end of the charts, and whichever went up the highest that week,
they got the spot,
would be on Top of the Pops. And unfortunately, the other song was Jeans On by David Dundas.
David Dundas.
Which I think went to #1.
I think it did, yeah.
So Bob missed his Top of the Pops, which is a shame. But he did the Larry Hagman thing when Who Shot JR was very popular.
Yeah.
And he did that special with him, and JR shot him. And he actually did shoot him and knocked him off his feet, and he ended up having to go to hospital.
Good
because
man.
Larry stood too close, even though it was a blank.
Yeah.
He'd missed his spot, and he stood too close, and actually did shoot him. And I always thought that should have been on the front page of every paper the day after.
I shot JR.
And there was nothing.
Was there?
And I just thought, that's got to be a bit of a failure in management, really. Because he was with Kennedy Street, who were probably the biggest agents in Manchester. But they also had 10cc and Cannon and Ball. They were busy. And I think Bob fell to the wayside a bit. And
talking to Tony Kinsella, one of the volunteers here, and he told me that he'd written a biography, unpublished, but he was unsure whether some of the stories were tall stories, like Bob.
Well, I know some of them will have been tall stories, because I've heard all the tall stories.
The Sex Pistols hoovering up at his house.
Yeah, I'm not sure that ever happened.
Sid Vicious making him a cup of tea.
It sounds a bit far-fetched.
Yeah, I thought that.
The bit about his wife throwing them out would have been true, because Janet didn't stand any messing. But he's probably had a few people back at his house, but I don't think the Sex Pistols did. He also used to say that he'd had Dr. Hook back at his house. And I asked Dr. Hook, and they had no recollection of it whatsoever.
It's one of those names, though, that could be, but he might be right there, isn't it? It's not.
He said he'd been to see them at the Apollo, got talking to them afterwards. They hadn't decided where they were staying yet, and he said, come back and stay at my house. So it's plausible.
Yeah, plausible.
But if it happened, they have no memory of it.
Yeah.
But
jury's out. Jury's out on that one, I'd say.
Well, I think Dr. Hook are probably more plausible than the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But that's a better story.
Yeah. I can't imagine Johnny Rotten with a Hoover and Sid Vicious making
If they did come and stay,
you did wreck the house.
none
didn't
of that happened.
No,
that's for sure.
Oh well, like, print the myth, as they say.
But when you sat in the pub and you're regaling people with tales and he brings that one out, people had hung on every word.
There would be, wouldn't there? The Sex Pistols.
And that's probably what encouraged him to make up a few other stories, shall we say. So I'm looking forward to reading this biography.
Yeah, heavily censored one.
And I'll yellow marker the bits I don't think are true until the yellow runs out.
A slim volume. Yeah. You've got here Graham Nash.
Graham Nash, who I know was a member of the club and lived locally. I spoke to Graham Nash briefly once. I used to work at the MEN Arena backstage, and he came up to me when Crosby, Stills and Nash were on. I remember he had a Beatles t-shirt on, and he said to me, "Where the hell am I?" He said, because I came here on the coach, but he said, I can't work out where I am in town at all.
Well,
so
it's changed that much.
I explained that he was the building was attached to Deansgate Station, Victoria Station. And then he sort of got his bearings, and that was it. So that was our only interaction, really. I remember David Crosby just stood looking confused in the corridor. He didn't even want to know where he was.
He's happy where he was.
He just knew he was on the planet somewhere. So yeah, so I guess we're sort of leading on to the meetings with people from at the arena, and locally there's bands like James. I remember we had before James retired and then came back again, but on the final gig of their retirement tour, at one point Tim Booth, who's known to do it, he got off stage and went into the crowd, but he hadn't told anybody he was doing it or when he was doing it. So I saw him go, and the guy that looked after the band went after him, and I went after him. And we're going up the aisle in between the seats, going up the steps, and Tim's in front, and the security guy, and then me. And the security guy sees a woman coming down the steps with a pint lager in each hand. So he just gets hold of the 2 pints and just throws them behind him, because he didn't want the beer to go on the mic. He didn't want us to spill any on the mic, so he just, and I'm behind him. So I got both pints. So when we got back into the backstage corridor, I collared him and said, "You threw those 2 pints over me." He said, "Roy, I didn't know you were there." And he apologised. And he said, if there's anything you want. And I said, yeah, I've got my eye on one of those t-shirts tonight that had a New York police badge on here with James on. So he gave me one of those. And I said, if you can keep, because they were filming it, I said, if you can keep it in the film. He said, well, I'm sitting in on the editing, so if it can be left in, it will. I don't know whether it is, because I've never watched the film. But so that was James. And in the afternoon, while they were sound checking, I was up in the gods. And a friend of mine was down on the floor, and it's a closed bowl, so nobody's allowed in. So I'm doing the Tim Booth dance, when he really lets himself go. I'm doing that in the gods, and my mate's down here laughing. And then Tim spotted me doing it. He didn't say anything, but so I got away with that. But it was an amazing last night of the tour. And I remember being stood stage left, and the arena manager said to me, they were doing sit down, and the crowd were going absolutely mad. And the manager said to me, this is what this place is all about. Because the atmosphere that night was incredible. And then there was people like Andy Rourke from the Smiths, who, that's appropriate, isn't it? I did a couple of his cancer concerts. I think they were called Versus Cancer, and the money went to the Christie, I think. And he had amazing lineups on. He'd have people like Noel Gallagher and Paul Weller and Johnny Marr and a couple of the Mondays and Echo and the Bunnymen, and they'd jam together. I think I remember Badly Drawn Boy doing one, and they'd do these jams, and So they'd have a couple of people, that Ian Brown might do a bit of DJing, and they were incredible nights. And sold out.
How many nights did it run for?
Well, I only remember 2 years of it. And then I don't know why it stopped. I don't know whether Andy moved to New York at that time, or but I can't remember why it stopped. But they were great nights. I used to look forward to those.
What's the story about Morrissey you told me?
The Morrissey story. Did 2 Morrissey gigs, the MEN, and it was his birthday, and it was the You Are the Quarry big tour. And I did one in Blackpool. It might have been the Opera House, but I'm not quite sure. But in the Opera House, where they filmed Strictly now. And so you've got the big floor and the stage, and then you've got the beautiful balcony. And on the right-hand side here, you've got an arch. And if you go through that arch, you're in backstage and you're at the dressing rooms. So to close the arch off from the floor where all the audience are, they just put these like foldable curtains up.
Right.
And there was a gap about that wide in the middle of the curtains. So people could see in, and as people were coming in, the odd one would come up and look through this gap. So Morrissey comes out of his dressing room, and he's been drinking quite a lot of tea. He was drinking pots of tea all afternoon. So he's making a lot of trips to the loo. So he comes out of his dressing room and the audience are in there. So I just said to him, just be aware that there's a gap in the curtain there and people can see through and they'll be able to see you going past. And he looked at me as if I'd trod on his cat. Didn't say a word, and scurried off to the loo. And I just thought, wow.
Precious.
Whatever. And I also remember he almost called the gig off because some of the local crew had been out and brought back a Burger King. And he'd smelt it. And the promoter came up to me, panicking with his arms in the air, saying, don't let any more crew come in with anything from Burger King. He said he's threatening to call the gig off. So
Precious.
Precious.
Precious indeed.
Well, it's your gig.
Yeah, but I don't get it. Well, that's Morrissey's.
You know, McCartney has only veggie food on tour and things.
Yeah,
you know, if you don't want to work for me, you don't have to. But if you work for me, then we only serve. I suppose that the drivers and that can go out and get a McDonald's or whatever, and I'm sure they do.
Yeah, he threw a strop in Spain, didn't he, the other week?
I don't really keep up with it because there are that many posts about cancelled gigs and this happened and that. So
the music outside was too loud and noisy. And
yes, I saw that. Yeah,
it might have been Valencia or somewhere.
Yeah. I forget what the noise was coming from now. It was something that's annual.
Yeah, they're a bit
and
of
a
festival. Yeah,
you know what you're going to
get, aren't you?
You're going to get it. Yeah.
We'll come back to Morrissey in a minute about the things you've given us.
Well, let's try Sean Ryder, because that was quite a funny story. So Sean and his mate are in watching a gig at the arena. I can't remember who was on, but they're watching a gig, and I got called into the promoter's office. It was John Stewart from SJM, and he said, do me a favour, Roy, will you go and get 2 pints of lager from the bar and take them to Sean Ryder? He's in C, whatever it was, block, wherever he said, because he's just phoned his manager in London and said, the bars have got big queues. Can you phone the promoter's office and ask him to get me 2 pints and bring them to me seat? So he said, will you go and take them? So I said, yeah. He said, don't let him back here because he'll be after money. Just take him the beer. So I actually bought them, because I thought it was so funny that he'd phoned his manager in London.
A bit of rock and roll, isn't it?
So I took them to him in his seat, He's a character, isn't he?
I've met him a few times, I
me
remember
too.
I was at Old Trafford with my son, Sean, Tottenham it was. And I looked, Sean said, where's Sean Ryder? He was asleep, slumped out. I don't know if he'd been drinking or medicated.
We actually put Sean and his mate out of the arena one night because he was causing a bit of a rumpus at a Robbie Williams party. So
he's still going though, isn't he?
We escorted him out. But I remember him being at, he did a duet with Russell Watson.
Oh, he did, didn't he? Yeah. Like Earlham lad.
And so Russell was on at the arena, and they were being presented with something for the single. So Sean was there with his mum, and he had a suit on.
Right.
He wasn't swearing. He was on his best behaviour all night because it was a Russell crowd, and because he had his mum with him. So he can behave when he wants to.
Yeah. I don't mind him, and I don't mind
Chooses
him.
not to. Now they make me laugh.
Simply Red, I don't know how true this is. He could be a bit of awkward.
Tell it as strong as you like.
He's a bit of a dick. He had a bit of a strop on him.
Yeah, he was always hard work, Mick. And they always said, do his dressing room, Roy, because you're all right with him, which meant I'd listen to it.
Yeah.
And I remember we did the opening night in Nottingham at Nottingham Arena. And they asked me if I'd go and do it because it was the opening night. They didn't want anything to go wrong. And all the staff were new. So I reluctantly did it. And it was Mick. And it started in the afternoon. He called me in about something. Then he called me and he couldn't get his PlayStation working. And then there was a tannoy system in the back. And this message came over the tannoy system. And he came flying out of his dressing room and said, "That's coming out of the speakers in my room." So I said, right, okay. So he was like this all day. The two guys who looked after him were having lunch. So I went and told them about this coming through, and we all had a laugh. And so the concert starts, bearing in mind it's the very first show, new arena, teething troubles, all the electrics went off on stage. About 10 minutes later, they've got them all started again, carried on, went off again. And then I got word in the back, get Mick's car ready, because if they go off again, he's leaving. Fortunately, they didn't go off again. I mean, we're still in the back laughing because we know how seething is it going to be and it's awful when it happens, because I've seen it happen before. I remember it happening to James, and they filled in for about 15 minutes just doing acoustic stuff while they got the electrics back on. Was great. And they also didn't cut any songs, so they went way over time, and it cost them thousands to go over time. But they didn't want to take any songs out of the set. So that was really nice. I mean, the fact that one of them came off and threw a bottle and smashed it against the wall because he was annoyed is a by story. But at least he stayed on and did the full set.
So the set out. You also, on your list here, Gary Barlow. What was that about?
Gary Barlow. Right, he was in a band called Take That.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Well, after Take That had split up, and Gary's career was sort of on a downward spiral. He was writing for other people, and I think one of the people he was writing for was Donny Osmond. So when Donny was on at the arena, Gary came in, and he came in. He was sort of dressed like a workman. He had jeans on and sort of work boots and that. He was very played down.
No.
And the production team that were on that night, that were doing that show, the guy who owned the production team had a daughter who was about 13. And she used to come off in often when it was sort of boy bands and that. Yeah. They'd do the production and she'd be in. So she always used to come and talk to me. And this particular night, Gary had come up talking to me, and then she came walking up and joined in the conversation. No idea who Take That are, no idea who Gary Barlow is, and she says to him, "Are you the forklift driver?"
You soon will be.
And he said, "Yes."
All right, took it.
And then when she'd gone, he said it was easier.
Yeah,
rather than try and explain who he was. Yeah. Anyway, I told her dad, and he said, "I'm never ever going to let her forget this."
Nice story though, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was really good. He was always nice when he came in, always chatty, nothing sort of big time about him. And so might not be my taste in music.
No, far from mine. Talking of taste in music, we have to plug this.
That was a good link.
It was.
Did I write that down?
No, I just leapt in. Tell us about the CD.
Right, so we're jumping forward a lot to this album. 3 years ago, I bought an 8-track recorder off Marketplace on a whim with no idea how to work it. I just thought that would be great to have. And the next minute it was on the table in our back room, and I thought, I don't know what to do with it. So I phoned my cousin, who's played in bands, asked him if he knew how to work it. He said, yeah, I should be able to. So he came round, had a look. He said, yeah, I'll be able to use that. So then I thought, well, we need somewhere. I'd got a couple of guitars and I'd got an amp. And so I thought, well, we need somewhere to record on it then. So I ended up building a recording studio in the back garden. Started gathering stuff together, bought drums, and he brought his organ along and a couple of guitars, and got a mic. So eventually we were ready to sort of record. I soundproofed it all and everything. And 3 years later, that is the result of what we started doing. And it was sort of therapy for us both and give us something to do. So I'd written about 4 songs, and one of them was a semi-finalist in the UK songwriting contest. So I'd got 4 written, but not bothered for a long time. So I said, right, well, I've got 4 songs we can start on. And once we'd done the 4, to keep the weekly sessions going, I had to come up with more.
Right.
So each week I'd tried to have come up with more. So
they're all self-penned.
I'd play a little bit on the guitar to him. I'd say, right, this is the new one. And I'd sing it and play guitar badly, because I'm a campfire guitar player with 5 chords. One I don't play very well. So I'd do that, and then his musical brain would take over. So this is Sam, my nephew, by the way. So he plays guitar, drums, keyboards, bass, uke, anything I throw at him and say, I wouldn't mind this on it. There was even, I think on the first song, there's a banjo that I bought specially because I wanted a banjo on that first song. And off he went. So
natural.
Once I've given him the idea, I sit back,
let him run with
cup of tea, cigarette, and off he goes, and he jumps from one instrument to the next, which we did on Monday this week. And in probably 5 hours, he'd recorded all the music for the next song.
Clever lad.
So he's a whiz.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, we might as well bring it out as a CD.
Where's it available from?
Well, it's only available as a CD from me.
Right.
But it's on all these streaming sites, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube and everything. So if anybody wanted to have a listen, it's very 60s.
Right, nothing wrong with that.
So, because all the things that you absorb through your life, music-wise, if you're trying to do music, they tend to come out, and I'm very much sort of 60s, 70s. So that's where it's 60s style.
We'll give this a listen. Before we get off, right, because time is beating us, I'd like to thank you profusely for the Morrissey items. £100 is what we've gathered. We'll get the money in next week, hopefully.
Which is great.
And we'll split it between the Oswald Food Bank and the Salford Lads Club, which is an ongoing concern. Is that okay with you?
Perfect.
I can't thank you enough. We're going to, next week, we've got, right, I was going to ask you, could you come back next week? If you possible.
I can just stay if you want.
No, we're live.
I'll come back next week if you tell those to
not
drill.
I'm sorry about that. Well beyond my
control. I've been fortunate, haven't I? It was storms,
not
but
too
poor
bad.
Paul suffered.
Well, next week we'll have you on, and there's Duncan McCormack. He's the local history librarian, but people are getting so interested in family tree research, the roots of where they're from, and the library's got an incredible, well, it's got 70,000 photographs of Salford, Eccles, Swinton. They've got the census returns, they've got birth certificate, the birth registrars, they've got everything you need.
Yeah, we've got a friend who did ours and got so far back, we traced quite a lot to Liverpool, I think. But then it started, the stepfathers and splintered families, and it starts to get harder.
Correct,
and because if there's nobody alive anymore to give you information,
you only
get
need
you
one
on the
mistake
right track.
as well. One mistake and you fly off
So
everywhere.
we stopped. But we got fairly far back. I was hoping that when it got to Liverpool there might be a McCartney on there somewhere, but
Lennon.
didn't see them.
Never,
sadly.
always the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks ever so much for coming.
You're very welcome.
Thank you
It's
for
been a
your
pleasure.
generosity.
And it's been great to see the Lads Club.
Yeah, it's a lovely venue, isn't it? So we're going to play out with Aptly Enough with one of Roy's songs and a little tribute to Michelle, who died last week. Roll the camera, Carl, please. Thank you.
Heaven's calling, reaching out a hand. Heaven's calling me to the promised land. Won't be long now, I'm a wanted man. When I go, don't shed a tear for me. When I'm gone from this misery, don't make a fuss, just gotta let it be. The writing's on the wall, my day is done. Remember me, 'cause I ain't coming back. Gotta go now, got my bag to pack.